This tutorial will give a step-by-step demonstration on how to sew a flounce neckline. While your garment may have some differences, this will go over the general process. The flounce is a design element similar to a ruffle, but is usually wider and will lie flatter at the top and flare out at the bottom. In my example, it's part of the neckline and gathered by an elastic casing. The first thing is to cut out the pattern pieces. You may have one or more flounces. Mine has 2 layers, an upper flounce and a lower flounce. You can still follow along if you only have one. Unlike a ruffle, a flounce pattern shape will be circular. This pattern is half a circle, but I will be cutting out 2 in each flounce pattern from my fabric. Don't forget to transfer any marks from your pattern to your fabric pieces. On all my flounce pieces, I'll do a stay stitch on the inner curve of the flounce. This means I'll stitch starting at each end and make my way toward the center. Sew this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance using a regular length stitch. I'm sewing each piece as a single layer of fabric, so nothing is getting stitched together. This just keeps the inner curve from distorting. I'll do the upper flounce first. I'll take both upper flounce pieces and pin them right sides together on the 2 straight edges. Sew this at the standard 5/8 inch seam allowance and then press the seam open. Now there's a full circle. On the outer curve of the flounce, I'll finish the edge with a narrow hem. To do this, press up a 1/2 inch all the way around to the wrong side. Then take the raw edge and tuck it to the pressed crease. Pin in place and stitch. I'll repeat this process with my lower flounce pieces by pinning and stitching both pieces together and doing a narrow hem around the outer curve. But on the pressed open seam allowances of the lower flounce, I'll baste on each side a few inches at the inner part of the seam allowances only. By tacking the seam allowances to the fabric underneath, it'll keep the elastic from getting stuck when traveling through the casing later. If you only have one flounce, you can skip this next step. I'll put my upper flounce on my lower one, both of them right side up, and match the inner notches, marks, and edges. Pin all the way around, and then baste the raw edges together to hold them. Now we'll attach the flounces to the top of my neckline. I already have some of my dress constructed ready for the flounce. Pin the neckline of the dress or shirt with the neckline of the flounce layers, but it's the right side of the flounce to the wrong side of the dress, matching marks. I'll sew up my seam allowance starting at one small dot and stop when I get to the next small dot. I'll do this for both the front and back of the neckline. When finished, help cut down on bulk by layering the seam allowance. This means cutting each layer at a different length. Understitch by pulling the flounce away from the dress, but the seam allowance is turned under the dress portion. On the right side, sew next to the seam line, attaching the dress fabric to the seam allowance underneath. Flip the flounce to the right side of the dress and press. Now we have the dress right side out with the flounces layered over the top. Let's do the casing. At the neckline, sew a 1/2 inch inward with a regular length stitch, but leave a couple of inches opening in the garment back to insert the elastic. My pattern comes with an elastic guide, so I'll cut my 3/8 inch wide elastic using this guide. Then I'll put a safety pin on one end. Run this end of the elastic into your casing until it's all the way through and you can overlap both ends. You might want to try on the garment to see if you need to adjust the elastic length for a tighter fit. When it's good, stitch through the elastic several times to hold it. Then stretch the neckline so the elastic goes fully into the casing and you can stitch the casing gap closed. And then your neckline flounce is done and is looking pretty. You can continue with the rest of your garment construction. Our book, Professor Pincushion's Beginner Guide to Sewing, Garment Making for Nervous Newbies, is now available to order. Go to professorpincushion.com/books or click on the link in the description to see a list of vendors where you can purchase it.